Hello and welcome to my channel. As a lot of you know, I love my tropical style plants, but what could you create if you added some design, great construction, quality materials and an attention to detail? Well, you're about to see. Welcome to the contemporary jungle. This garden for me is by far one of the best I've ever had the privilege of visiting and videoing. It really shows what design, hard work, passion and an attention to detail can achieve. So this garden is very much terraced and has various different heights and is just such a great example of using different foliage to create a tranquil and relaxing exotic environment. The use of structures, the use of materials, the use of foliage just absolutely work together amazingly, and the sense of balance throughout the garden is just like another level. Wherever you walk, there is interest, it all ties in, the materials match each other with this lovely hardwood deck painted the same colours as these bespoke gazebos, and the detail in these gazebos is second to none and was built by Anthony and family members, where they hand built and fixed every one of these pieces of timber. Looks absolutely amazing. So I'm going to take you a little bit of a walk around. We're now on the sort of a mid-level deck and we have a seating area here. We've got a beautiful atmosphere that's created by an overhead canopy of trees and trachycarpus and cordylines that give us this real sort of sense of privacy and sense of being somewhere else, and have created just an amazing sort of tropical atmosphere. And then these structures just are almost architectural in the way they sort of sit in the garden, but they're blended into it. Even though they're a very sort of contemporary shape, they are just softened so much by the planting. So on this level of deck here, we have a corner sofa where they can sit and just chill and enjoy the garden. Inside this building here, we have a hot tub. Just wow. And then moving around, going down here, we have another outdoor living area, which is basically a pergola. It's got polycarbonate roof on it, so it still lets in the light, but you can't see that from looking at the structure because it's so cleverly been built that you can't see the polycarbonate. But what that polycarbonate clear roof gives you is almost an outdoor garden room where they can grow all these other types of plants that they can bring out for the summer months. And even under here, the foliage is absolutely brilliant, and the feeling of tranquility is just second to none. It's by far one of the best gardens I've ever had the privilege of being in. And then the way they've sort of framed the views, so if you look through here, the way that lovely tree fern sits there, and then I'll show you in a minute, there's little steps that go up to a pond and a bridge going across it, and the timber and the colour of the bridge just balances so well with the timber that's been used in the structures and the linear lines. So we've got these straight linear lines in the structures, then in the decking, then in the bridge. It just brings balance throughout the garden. And if you look at the colours, it's a very sort of very green sort of palette, lots and lots of greens, really sort of unusual leaf shapes used, But then Anthony likes that little hit of colour using burgundies and purples, which are picked up by the foliage of some of these plants, including this ensete and various other plants. I know as I'm filming this, the footage will never ever do this garden justice. As I'm walking around, the feeling I get from being in it is just otherworldly. It is just phenomenal. So we're going to take a little walk past the hot tub to where we've got this next pathway that is going to take me to the bridge and across the pond. Because of the different levels and the different pathways, the sense of journey that you get from this garden is just so much interest. So as we go through, and I'm going to step down and try not to drop the camera into the pond. But even this, I think, is such a clever idea. The gaps in the bridge still makes you feel safe, and it's structurally strong, but just the fact that you can still see the fish swimming through the gaps just adds that so much more interest. And the way the linear lines of the timber blend in with the structures around. Honestly, all these little tips, all this sense of balance throughout the garden using similar plants in different places. So you'll find that there isn't an enormous range of hundreds of different types of plants, but plants that are repeated over and over again, and then more and more interested and unusual leaf types mixed in with them. So as I move around, I'm in the middle of the bridge now. The pond has a stream that goes up to a lovely little pond at the back there. Then we're going to move around, show you there. We've got this colocasia, and there's a few colocasia here which are sitting in the pond and doing absolutely brilliant. And then the attention to detail with these sort of Spanish moss plants just hanging down, giving that extra little bit of character to the garden. And as a canopy, what's happened in this garden is lots of the lower growth have been took off these plants because it gives more room but gives good height. So lots of the tetrapanics, the lower growth has been took off and thinned out, so it gives really good sort of filtered light as a canopy, and that just creates an even more relaxing, beautiful atmosphere that, to be fair, you can't feel unless you're in the garden. But again, here with the tetrapanics, all the lower growth taken off, almost standardized, and then a beautiful display of leaves above, and that blends in with the cordylines just behind, and then there's a few trachycarpus. And the canopy of this garden is just made up of probably about 5 or 6 different plants that are repeated, that are all green, that are all just giving that sense of like a jungle canopy. And then the planting has been layered down so well using all the different spaces. So here we've got a large fatsia, which most people would have in their gardens, but it's a real standout plant. The way it just comes over the furniture there and makes you feel like you're actually sort of submerged into the garden. And then there's 2 real good focal points here, as you look down this path, there's a lovely Jabea chilensis there, and also as I pan round here, there's another one here. And these are at the end of the walkway, so as you walk in, they are really good focal points that are almost structural in shape and leaf, that they just draw your eye in. And then you've got all this underplanting, which is all different types of foliage, similar leaf colours, but all colours and textures that work well so together. There's lots of these Mahonia soft caresses and plants like that, which soften the garden because they're not real hard rigid leaves, and they just make you feel like as you go through these paths, if you brush past them, it doesn't matter. You just feel so submerged into the garden. And pretty much out of most of the gardens I've visited, I feel like this one really does suit outdoor living. It's sort of very much designed that they can enjoy the garden. They have like a barbecue area under here. They have 2 good sized seating areas, one under shelter, one outside. Then you've got the hot tub area. For outdoor living and enjoying the garden as much as possible, they've done an absolutely brilliant job. So we're going to walk around here, and this is the lowest level nearest the house. So Anthony's created all this hardwood deck going through, and you can see the steps in height that gives it real character. Then he's built lots and lots of these raised planters, which gives him really good drainage and allows him to have a real good mixture of plants. And even this Camerops humilis, the way that it just bends out there, almost like you'd imagine a coconut palm bending out over a beach. Just them little things and the way the growth is, there's just so much character. And the detail, the pots all seem to blend in and be similar colours that go really well with the furniture. The decking and the foliage, just like here, the way it just is creeping over the path. It just makes you feel like the jungle is squeezing in onto the structures and onto the hard materials, and you are so surrounded by this urban jungle. It's just outstanding. It's, without oversaying it, it's probably right there as one of the best gardens I have absolutely ever visited. And I feel like the fact that he's done it all himself, he's put all this detail into all this timber work, he's created this beautiful outdoor living space, he's found balance through the materials, through the colour schemes, through the foliage types. So much. If you took it back to the bare essentials, it could be really simplified. Not too much sort of overdoing it with different plants, with different materials. It's kept very simple, but done in a real top level way. And something that I see earlier, and these little attentions to details I absolutely just love. So we've got the Spanish moss, but lots of you out there might grow Fascicular bicola, and we tend to grow it in the ground or in a pot. And he's actually, because it is like an epiphyte, he's actually turned it into almost like an air plant, where he's got a little bit of a hole in the top of that cord line, and he's sort of rooted it into that, and it just looks like a big air plant up there that should be there all day long. And I'm definitely going to try something similar to that in my garden, because I just think it's an absolute, them little details that take the gardens to another level. And there is just so much detail that I just can't pick it all up in the camera. But even sort of the way that, for instance, these plants with the sago and this Phoenix, I think it's Robelini, if I've pronounced that right, the way the feathery type leaves just tie in so much with the other feathery leaves, like there, the Monia soft caress. It's repeated, not the same plant. The same plants are repeated, but textures are repeated. Similar leaf shapes are repeated, and then the more unusual ones just mixed in. And the fact that nearly the whole garden is green, but has so much interest in it, from the ground to the highest level, just absolutely outstanding. I've walked around this I've visited before, and I've walked around it again today, well before I started filming. And honestly, I don't know where to look. It all blends in beautifully together, but also there is so much variety in there and interesting just leaf shapes. I absolutely love it. And like here, you've got a tetrapanax at ground level, and then that ties in lovely because you've got the tall tetrapanax just above you. If you went to a real jungle, you would have lots and lots of similar plants just repeated. You wouldn't have hundreds and hundreds of different plants. You would have the same plants repeated in many different ways, and then you get the interest with the other foliage as well. But just the way these structures just blend in like they've been there for years. Such a contemporary shape, but the plants just surround them. Even there, nearly all these structures that he spent so much time building, he's putting climbers up nearly all of them because he wants them to feel like they are part of the garden. And he really has achieved that. The ground cover, loads of evergreen ground cover, ferns. There's down there's Pachysandra and there's Fatseers. So there's lots of evergreen. We've got these small mahonias just creeping over the path here. It feels like the garden was designed and put here, and then a jungle has just grown around it. And that is so hard to achieve, but it's so clever at the same time. And I've seen pictures of this. I will do a link to Anthony's Instagram account. He puts lots and lots of pictures on that, and it's looking brilliant at night. All the spotlights are on, and it just takes on a whole different feeling. And obviously with these different areas that you can sit outside, it can be enjoyed from morning till late. Who wouldn't want to sit under here in their own urban little jungle? I think the thing that I'd like anyone watching this to take from it is the sense of detail in the effort that's been put into the structures, into putting balance throughout the garden. If you want to use contemporary shapes, you can still have a tropical garden, but that sense of balance throughout the whole thing, that the plants, the timber, the structural shapes, they just tie in so well, like probably no other garden I think I've ever visited. And it's probably the most photogenic garden I've ever been in. You could pretty much take beautiful photos from every angle. It's not a really big garden, but it feels big because every bit of space is used, from every terrace, from the ground to the highest level. And he's still trying to find them more extra unusual plants. He's still trying to fill them gaps with the air plants. And if I come around here, for instance, now something I love to do, like the Trachycarpus trunks there, bringing the bromeliads up the trunk. You don't have to have spaces there. Over time you can use them to add extra plants and put extra interest to your garden. So I would say this garden is pretty much goes on a canopy of cordylines, tetrapanax, trachycarpus, and a few other trees. And then we come down from that, we have like these jabaias, and then lots and lots of sort of mid-level plants. Here we have Xanthidea Hercules, and we have various other cordylines that repeat the feeling that you get above you. So again, that balance and repetition. And then we go right the way down to the ground, trying to cover every bit of soil with the grasses and all the other different low-level planting that just looks like you're in a jungle. And this garden is literally 15 minutes away from Sherwood Forest, in the sort of Mansfield, sort of Nottingham area of the UK. And I literally drove through Sherwood Forest on the way to here, which I thought was kind of cool. Robin Hood country. Getting back to the garden, there is so much to take from this, and I've wanted to film this garden now. I've pretty much been on Anthony for a couple of years now, and him being the perfectionist that he is, wanted to get it as nice as possible. And it always looks nice, to be honest, but there's a reason why it looks this good, and that is because of his effort and attention to detail throughout the old garden. Absolutely stunning. And you can't see from the foliage, but even near the house, the blinds inside the house are the same sort of texture as the timber outside. There's climbers going up the walls. It's just surrounds you. Like I say, I've been wanting to show this garden for a long time. It's different to the other gardens I've shown, but by God, in a good way. It really shows you that you could have that modern style garden and still have this beautiful, lush, tropical feeling, or almost a jungle in your back garden. Yes, some plants, like the insects, need winter protection, but there is a lot of plants in here that can stay out all year round. Lots of evergreens that look absolutely beautiful all year round. So I'm going to sit down and enjoy this for a little bit longer before the light goes and it starts to get darker. Have a bit of a plant chat with Anthony. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Any questions, please leave it in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.